All right, Levente, are you ready for another night of training to become that competent and confident speaker? All right,
Yeah.
we're moving on to number 8. Can you believe it's number 8, 8th training we've had? So let me go ahead and get over here and get into the share screen. All right. So like I said, we're continuing our look at the speech preparation steps. And last time we began looking at, oh, it's not working. Okay, there. Last time we began looking at practicing the delivery. Now, we saw that that involves 3 main things. There are more, but 3 main ones. And that is learning how to use your body, then using your voice, and lastly, I talked about that learning how to use your heart. And that will be the training that we'll do next time. Now, while these were the 3 main things we looked at, I did mention a few, and then you added something during our Q&A. So I added it into the slides now, Alavente. Okay, so what was it? Using props was one of the things that we want to learn. And I decided we're going to have another training. After we do the one with the heart, we'll look at the props and how to dress. And dealing with fear, I mentioned it a little bit last time. And what to do right before speaking. I also mentioned that. But I think when we do that training with the props and that, I'll talk a lot more about these things. So with that done, our main focus last time was using your body for nonverbal communication. You know, physical expressiveness, like body language, the use of gestures, having stage presence. This was the main emphasis. And this is very important, as we saw that our visual cortex takes in a lot more than anything else. So what we see has a huge impact on us. But now we're going to focus on the other key ingredient with this, and that is learning how to use your voice. Now we could call this also vocal expressiveness or vocal variety. And that's how I'll use it a lot today. I'll talk about it as vocal variety. That's what we want to learn. Now, how important is it to know how to use your voice in public speaking? Well, I have 3 quotes to share with you to start off. This first one was Leslie Belknap, and she said this: according to an analysis of media appearance by 120 top financial communicators, the sound of a speaker's voice matters twice as much as the content of the message. So imagine that. Our voice is twice as important as the words we say. It's kind of interesting. Another quote by Leslie: successful TED speakers have 30.5% higher vocal variety than less popular TED speakers. You know, they've done all kinds of research on those TED speakers, and it's very interesting. They have 1/3 higher, so they put a lot more effort into their vocal variety. So that's important. Then we have this. This is from a blog I follow. It's called the SOAP blog, and it's for state-of-the-art presentations. If something sounds exaggerated or false, your audience can turn against you. So this is important to know, that if we come across as fake or like exaggerated in different ways, like I've seen people when they give speeches and they just get too ramped up and they're talking and they're really going that, and I'm like, whoa, it's too much. You know, it's not appropriate. So it's important that we learn how much to do when it comes to using our voice. We can do too much or we can do too little. And so it takes practice to learn that area that's really good to be at. Now, last time, we did look at the statistics from a study done in the 1970s of the relative importance to an audience of how we use our body, voice, and words. And as we see, the body was most important. The voice was still up there quite a bit, and then the words were 7%. And I just find that interesting. Of course, if you didn't have, words are important too, because if you didn't say anything, there would be nothing. So we need the words as well. But when you combine those and do the best possible with each one, oh, that makes for a powerful speech. Okay, when speaking, the main when speaking, the main thing you want to avoid is what? Did I say that right? I don't know if it came out. When you're speaking, what's the main thing you want to avoid when it comes to your voice? You want to avoid boring your audience by having a monotone voice and no emotion. You know, you're just there going through the motions, you know, kind of like some of the teachers I had in high school. So if you're dead up front, the audience is going to be dead as well. Okay. So what do you need to do? You need vocal variety. Now, what are the benefits of having excellent vocal variety? Well, first of all, vocal variety helps make you more interesting to listen to. And if you're interesting to listen to, people, they respect you and they're drawn in and they want to listen. So it's helpful that way. It makes you interesting by having a good vocal variety. It helps you to express emotion to the audience. And without emotion, you're dead. And so the audience will be dead. So emotion is important. And it can also help magnify the meaning and significance of your message. So by using your voice in the right way, it can impact every aspect of the speech and your connection with the audience and what they get out of it. Now, what things do you want to use your voice for? Like, when should you use the vocal variety when you're speaking? What are the main things you should think about using it for? And that would be when you're communicating your key ideas, you want to raise your voice a little bit, or you want to pause beforehand and then pause after, because that pausing before will like say, hey, I have something important to say. So there's a variety of things you can do that way. So key ideas, you want to really use your voice in a way that makes the audience see, oh, this is important. I need to pay attention. And like I said, pauses are really good. If you pause and everybody's kind of distracted and doing things and you get quiet, pretty soon everybody's looking at you going, oh, what's up? So that's good. Now, it also is, as we talk about emotion, is to help you express your feelings and passions. This is what you want to do. When you want to express your feelings, when you're talking about something that you're passionate about, you want your emotions to come through. Or you're talking about something, let's say, scary. You want your emotions to come through. You're excited. You want your emotions to come through. You're happy. You want the emotions to show. So it's important to learn how to express your feelings by using your voice. And I kind of hope at times that I've done that through these trainings, that you see that I have a lot of vocal variety. Maybe I could do better, but at least I give it a good shot. And of course, one more thing, stories. When you're telling stories, vocal variety is really important. If you want to keep your audience engaged and in suspense and listening and active with you, vocal variety goes a long ways. Because you could just see, what if a person come and go like this? I have a very exciting story I want to tell you. You know, these guys, they bought an elephant and, you know, pretty soon, you know, it's going to be boring. Now, what we go on to next. What things make up vocal variety? Now, this is an introduction tonight. I'm not going to try to explain all these, but just give it a little bit of an idea. And I'm going to have links so that you can do more research on your own or read the articles to learn more about the specifics of these things. But how do we do this? What makes it up? Well, first of all, volume. How loud or soft we sound has a key part. We want variety in our sound. We want sometimes it to be louder and sometimes softer. And I have found that if you want to get it, you move in closer to the audience and you speak softly, because when you have something important to say, it kind of draws them in. Then your pitch. How high, how low you go. So you want a lot of variety of that as you're speaking. Because the worst thing, like I said, is monotone. If you keep something the same all the time, people get bored very quick. But when you have a lot of variety, it keeps people engaged with you. Okay. Then you have your pace, how fast you go or how slow you go. You want a lot of variety with that. And we looked at how many words per minute when we were talking about writing a speech. So I recommend around 130 words per minute. but it doesn't mean you're going to do that the whole time. Sometimes it's going to be 150 words a minute. Maybe sometimes it'll be 100 words a minute, but it'll average out to 130. Then pause, how to pause. And we're going to look at this in more detail after we get through these. Pausing is very important and can help a lot in keeping your audience engaged and everybody really, and for you to feel relaxed if you're not feeling in such a rush to get through things. Then we want to express a lot of different emotions while we're speaking. Happy, sad, angry, mad, indifferent, disgusted, whatever, depending on if you're telling a story or not. But we still want to show passion and excitement for what we're talking about. We love what we're talking about. We love our audiences. And that's why we want to get that. And by sharing it through emotions, we help make that connection with them. Then you have intensity, how intense you talk versus not very intense. Lots of energy. You're so excited. You're going, you're expressing this lot energy out. And sometimes not so much. You don't want to have high energy the whole time. People will go, oh, wait a second, that's just too much. Then the tone. And for me, I try to figure out, how do you explain what tone is? And for me, this is the best way I understand it. It's how you express your attitude. If you're in a, let's say, indifferent, you just don't care. I don't care. I'm not going to, who cares about what you say? That's a kind of a tone you could have with people. Or if you're mad and you're angry, you could have a very bad tone towards people. That can be communicated. And the tone should reflect what you're speaking in your speech. Then there's clarity. And clarity just means that you're enunciating the words clearly. And sometimes I don't do this. So when I practice my speeches, a lot of times I'll enunciate a little bit more exaggerated than I normally would, just a little bit more, so that when I get to the speech in the situation I'm talking, then I don't exaggerate, but I'm still clear with it. And the other thing you can do when it comes to clarity is practice tongue twisters. How many chucks could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck would all day? Silly Sally she sells at the seashore. Hurricanes hardly happen in Hartford. Beets boil better in butter. So doing those type of things, doing these tongue twisters, helps you get better at enunciating words. And one of the links I have, within that article, it has links to some tongue twisters, and it says it right in the article. So you can find some more there. Maybe you have some good ones in Hungarian and Romanian. Okay, and for emphasis, like if you want to emphasize a point in what you're saying, that was the best food I ever had. So just learning to emphasize certain key words as you're speaking can help bring in people or help them to know what's really important. And then here's one that's really interesting, I think, is character voices. If you're telling a story and you have different people in it, learning to use your voice to distinguish different people in the story. Or if you're having a dialogue with someone, you could be over on this side for part of it, speaking with a certain kind of voice. Then the other person you're doing the dialogue for, you have a different type of voice for them. And so that helps people. That is more engaging. So that's our look at the basic things that we could have in our vocal variety. There are more than this, and I'm sure you could put them in different words as well, but this gives you an idea of the kind of things that are involved with vocal variety. Now, I said I'd talk a little bit about pauses. And Mark Twain, he was a famous writer in America. He said this: the right word may be effective, but no word was ever as effective as a rightly timed pause. When you pause well, it has huge impact on people. So learn to use pause as well. So when should you pause? Well, I'm just going to give you some ideas. You should pause before you start. Remember we talked about this, that you spend about 3 seconds just looking at everybody smiling before you start. When you transition from one idea to another, or from one subpoint to another point, whenever there's some kind of transition, you should pause a little bit to signal to people that something different is going to happen. Oh, to let things sink in. You said something profound or something important, then you pause to let people think about it. Then stay tuned. And this is the one where if you're silent, and then people finally look up and they're all paying attention to you, they're tuning back in. So you just the pause helps them to refocus on you. So stay tuned for further things. Then eye contact. So here's a great thing. You're getting ready to say something important. You pause and you just look at people for a few seconds. Man, that creates some tension or excitement as they wait for what you're going to say. So pause with eye contact. Then you have to reflect. You want them to think about what you said. So you give them a little pause. Most of the time, our problems, especially when we're starting out as speakers, is we're rushing through things because we're adrenaline's pumping and we're just trying to get things done and we don't realize how fast we're speaking. And so this gives people, by pausing, gives them time to think about what you're saying. Then you have for the audience, you can pause for the audience. Say the audience is applauding you, pause, don't rush in. Or if they're laughing about something you said, wait, pause before you continue. Then if you ask a question, pause, see if you can get an answer. Or even if it's a rhetorical question, you can still pause for a second or so to let them think and then answer it. And again, for emphasis, you can pause to really point out something's really important. And also, pausing helps you to not use filler words, as long as your pause is a silent pause. So, this idea of using filler sounds and words and these type of things, pauses can go a long way to stop doing those things. And then you can use pauses like punctuation. A short pause for a comma and a longer pause for a period, full stop. So these are some of the ways we can use pauses to help us be more effective. Now, as far as practicing, all these things we've talked about so far, everything we've talked about vocal variety, how should we practice? How long should we practice? Well, you should practice until it feels right to you, what you're saying. You keep doing it and practicing it. Because before, I said at the beginning of the first week of practicing your delivery when you're working on the body, is to get comfortable with the words. Now, during the second week, you want to learn how to use those words. Not what words, but how to use them. So like I said, saying words are not enough. You have to be, how you say them is critical. So that's what you're doing during that second week. So practice it until you feel comfortable with it. And you can also record yourself as you're speaking, or even present what you're doing in front of a few friends or people you know, colleagues, just to get some feedback to see if your vocal variety is doing well, if it's having an impact on it. And of course, when you do speeches, you will get feedback from people in the club and you'll have the video there. And you can use that to see how your vocal variety was. Now, starting out, what should you focus on while practicing your delivery? I mean, as a beginner, what things did I try to focus on and what I encourage people to focus on? I don't worry about all those things I showed you, but there's like 4 things I tend to work on, right? Speaking faster and slower at different times. That's the pace. Make sure you do that, practice that. See where it fits within your speech. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention this. If you write out your speech the first few times, that's helpful because you can just look at the speech to see where the key areas are or where you want to emphasize things. And you can just highlight those with a marker and then decide how you're going to how you're going to use your voice to emphasize that or to point something out. So anyway, so speak faster or slower at different times is a good thing to practice at the beginning. speak at slightly higher and lower pitches, right? Use more force to speak louder or softer. And pause at different points in your speech. So if you do these things to start out, you're doing good. And as you learn more and you get more comfortable, then you can add more things into it and have quite a bit of vocal variety. Now, one key secret to doing well with vocal variety is how you breathe. You want to learn to breathe from your diaphragm. And what that means is, see if you can see me here, the area below your chest, if you put your hand there, and when you breathe from the diaphragm, the stomach goes out. If you breathe in, out. No, backwards, in, out. When you breathe in, the stomach goes out. When you breathe out, comes in. And you could practice that. It took me a while to get where this was natural for me. So I just kept practicing because I was having too shallow of breaths. And so I had to learn to breathe more deeply from my diaphragm. Now that's our look at vocal variety as far as in person. And it's not much different from the virtual, but in a virtual setting, you should probably speak a little bit slower than you would in person because of the technical issues with the microphone and internet speakers. So you don't want to go too fast with those things. So slow down just a little bit. Now, what is important in a virtual setting is the quality of your microphone. It's more important than what you see, because people can put up with quite a bit of what they can't see very well, or it's a little dark, but if they can't hear or if it's terrible, they're not going to listen. So quality microphones are key things. Now this guy I think he's probably doing a podcast, and he has a very, very nice microphone sitting on his desk. That's one way of doing it when you're sitting. Another way of doing it when you're sitting is like I'm doing, and this young lady is here, where you have earbuds with a microphone. Now, this is just pointing those out, but when you speak, you should be speaking from standing up. And you can see that I'm doing it with the earbuds as well. And I also have what Mike Carr, the world champion, used. You see this? If you look carefully on his tie, you see that lapel or lavalier mic sitting on his blue tie there. So that's what he used. And that's generally what I use in contests too. I don't like this, and I can get farther back because I have a longer cord on my lapel mic. And so I like using that when I'm doing competition speeches. Maybe I would even do it for club speeches. But if I need to hear someone, then I tend to like this better. Some people try to use their microphone from their computer, their laptop, but generally the quality of that is not very good. I have a Logitech high quality webcam, and the audio is much better than the one on my laptop, but it's still not as good as this is. So what you want is to have the best quality that you can afford. And that way it'll sound good to everyone who's listening. And so that's what you want good sound. Now that's pretty much it, what I wanted to share tonight. But here I'm going to be giving you links to things about using your voice. And I told you that one of the articles in there even has links within that article to tongue twisters. But there's a lot more than this. This is just some of them on using your voice. And then you see here I have 6 articles on pauses. And so I encourage you to take time to learn those. Remember, we talked about this from the beginning. If you want to be a competent and confident speaker, you need to be learning what are the best practices. And then you take what you learn and you put it to practice in your speaking. And then you focus, after you do a speech, you focus on improving yourself by looking at the video and the feedback. So it's that constant learning, speaking, improving, learning, speaking, improving. But it's all has to work together. That learning is an important part of it too. Okay, we go on now to how do you get to the point where you can effectively use your voice? What does it take to become really good with vocal variety? Same as I told you last week for body. Practice, practice, practice. And let me end this with one more quote about using your voice. Vocal dynamics is one of the most powerful tools a presenter can use to win over an audience. Tone quality, pitch, inflection, emphasis, variety in pace, pauses, and all the emotional nuances our voices can project offer a nearly limitless palette to paint our word pictures and convince others. So this is a very good tool, this vocal variety. So make sure that you are practicing and using it and continually doing that to the point where it becomes more of a habit and more natural and easier to do. All right, so that's the end of our training for tonight. It's time for question and answers. So let me put this share screen off here. Okay, Levente, do you have any questions whatsoever? I can't hear you.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank you for asking. I would be curious what are the signs or symptoms of an audience if you're doing something not right? Maybe you are having too much pauses or your voice is not on the level you should. Before the sleepy audience which you showed before, is there any other symptoms that we can observe, and maybe we can adjust our speech in the present, I mean, during the speech?
Yeah, well, one thing for sure is like, if you see people starting to do other things, or they're looking down and they're no longer looking at you, okay, they're not looking at you, that's an indication that probably you're doing something that's either too repetitive or they're just not getting it. And that's a good time to do a pause and just wait and see, get everybody back to looking at you. I'm trying to think of specific things I've tried to do in the past. Most of the time, I think most people are very, in at least Toastmaster clubs, they're going to be very patient with you. They're going to be, when you get out in the real world, that's not going to happen, okay? People are going to be, oh, or that, or, you know, start looking at their phones and stuff like that. I think the main thing is you want to just learn to have that variety as you're speaking, and try not to get into a routine of how you do things, like doing the same thing over and over, but having a variety and not trying to do the same thing the next speech in the same way, but having just so that you're not getting yourself lulled into, what would you call that? Just going through the motions type of thing. So you want to really work at it. And for me, I like I said about this issue of the heart, which we will look at next time, that plays a part too in our ability to be good at using our bodies and our voice, is when we learn to really speak from our heart and really mean it, the other things flow much easier. So that's a secret I've learned. At least I know when I didn't see anybody teach that, but that's what I discovered from speaking, is that when I got to the point where it's coming, where I really care, and when it's really coming from here, instead of just like, okay, I have to do the speech, it's project 5, okay, I have to, you know, instead of that, it's just something I really want to do. I want to do this, that it makes a huge difference.
Okay, thank you. How about the audience size? Is that matters when we apply a few tricks, if I can say so, regarding the controlling of the audience's attention to what you want to say?
Yes, it does.
I guess it's different. Yeah.
Yes. Well, yes. And it would depend if you have a mic or not. Okay, that's another thing you have to consider. Because if it's a really big audience, you either have to learn to really use your diaphragm to get your voice out there, so that you don't want to try to talk louder from here, because you'll hurt your vocal cords. But what you do is you learn to use your diaphragm to push the air out, and that helps you to speak louder. But the main thing is, okay, like on body, if you have a big audience, the bigger the audience, the bigger the gestures. The same with your voice. But you have to, it's not as easy that way because you don't want to blow people away who are in the front row, okay? So reaching the people in the front and the back can be challenging. And sometimes what I do is I kind of imagine my voice going out into the middle of the audience, you know? And so I'm projecting out a little bit that way. And sometimes it helps to project is to figure out how to, or learn how to speak from your lips instead of back farther here, because then you can put it out there farther. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
But if you have people yelling, what, you go, oh, is that Levente messing around or Julian? But if it's not them, then you probably need to speak louder.
Yeah. And what are the real limits of the online speeches, which you can really have nothing to do about?
Yeah. The hardest thing I see, it depends. In Romania, we have it very good. But I've gone to Toastmaster online meetings with clubs in Africa, and their internet speed is really slow. And so that has a huge impact on the quality of the sound, okay? And so there, definitely you want to speak slower. I just think in general, a little bit slower is good for online, but I have to qualify that. You don't want to be boring, okay? So you still have to keep the speed up, but maybe not just as fast. Because I just think the technology of it getting to the microphones, getting to the other people, that if you go too fast, I'm just wondering if it doesn't come across as good. I just don't have much experience with that as far as having it in our club. It seems very fine. Do I seem like I'm speaking too fast to you? Can you understand me?
Yeah. Yeah, yes, yes, and I have examples. I have experienced somebody in any language, in Romanian, Hungarian, also English, who really talks very fast, and I don't get these people because I don't. And also in real life, when somebody speaks, I don't understand why, but actually I understand. But sometimes you have to tell him, hey, please a bit slower. Why? You're slow-minded or what? No. I just want to. I'm really interested in what you want to say. You know,
because the problem is people don't understand the brain can only process so much at a time, and if it gets too much in there, it just becomes noise. You know, it doesn't really get it all in. One time I did a training, or not training. Sorry, I did one of my speeches. Get rid of the noise. It was on slide presentation, which I probably will do for this training as well on how to design slides. But when I did it, in the opening, I had Christian Kiefer standing next to me and Alex standing next to me, okay? And all of the three of us started talking at the same time. You know, and that was just the intro to help people to understand that our brains can't process lots of things at the same time. So that intro was really good. It had a huge impact on people, you know, I could see it in their eyes. But so, the thing is, I just find that we can probably speak a little faster when we're in person, but still you don't want to go too fast. Like you said, most people can't understand it. And now we're in a situation where most people in the club are English as second language or third, you know. And so I need to take that in consideration when I speak in those situations.
It's very important. That would be all for me, sir.
Okay.